Welcome back, guys. This is another episode of What the X. This is What the X episode 82, WTX 82. Thank you so much for tuning in. And please like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're gonna get right to it. We're gonna start with a pretty explosive story that's on X right now. DOJ, Department of Justice, expands Trump IRS settlement with tax audit shield and new compensation fund. The Justice Department added a one-page agreement on May 19th, signed by Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, that releases Trump, his sons, the Trump Organization, and related trust from any IRS claims or audits on tax returns filed before mid-May 2026. In exchange for dropping the $10 billion suit over a 2019-2020 tax return leak, the DOJ created the Anti-Weaponization Fund from the Federal Judgment Fund to compensate individuals harmed by alleged government weaponization, with quarterly reports promised. Democrats like Senators Elizabeth Warren and Chris Murphy condemned it as corruption and a slush fund. While Republicans defended its openness to all claimants, the fund will stop processing claims by late 2028 amid ongoing congressional debates. So, guys, I know that was a lot of word salad there. There's a lot going on with that whole news article. Essentially, what's going on, guys, is that Trump, he's actually has the IRS. They are no longer able to audit his past tax returns. So anything from May 2026 and uh, backwards in the past, they cannot audit, which is crazy. As along with his family and his businesses, and that all stems from a 2019. There was a 2019 leak of his tax return that is actually illegal. There was an IRS contractor who leaked his 2019 Trump's 2019 tax return, and so there is some validity to the illegal act perpetrated by an IRS agent. But essentially, what happens here is that Trump has now he's now sued the IRS for $10 billion. So there was a $10 billion suit against the IRS, which I actually did look this up because I kind of wanted to get a little more clarification, guys. So I got this right from, oh gosh, let me get right to it, guys. Give me 1 second. I always appreciate your patience with me. Here we go. This is basically the short answer because I asked it kind of like, could you explain this a little bit in layman's terms? And essentially, because the Trump administration, and this is where like the validity is, like Trump doing corrupt stuff right now with all of this, and this is kind of the short answer to that. Because the Trump administration negotiated a settlement to end Trump's own $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS because of that leak, and the DOJ, the Department of Justice, used the Judgment Fund to create the 1.776 billion. You didn't hear you didn't mishear that. That is 1.776 anti-weaponization fund as part of the deal. This was a political decision, not a legal requirement. What the reporting shows, Trump sued the IRS for $10 billion over the leak of his tax returns from 2019-2020. The DOJ under Trump, this is where it gets really corrupt, guys. It's like, so it's Trump's Department of Justice, right? Agreed to settle by creating a $1.776 billion fund to compensate people claiming they were victims of lawfare or weaponization. The money comes from the Judgment Fund, a treasury account that allows the government to pay settlements without Congress approving each one. Again, that's kind of getting around the checks and balances of Congress and the president. So that is definitely pretty problematic right there. Critics, including Democrats and watchdog groups, called this an unprecedented self-dealing maneuver. Again, self-dealing because essentially he settled with the IRS through the Department of Justice because he is heading the Department of Justice. This is Trump's Department of Justice, right? He's in office right now. Because Trump was effectively settling his own lawsuit using taxpayer money. Why the IRS agreed? The IRS itself didn't independently choose this, right? The Justice Department, which represents federal agencies in litigation, negotiated the settlement. Under Trump, the DOJ leadership had the authority to settle the case on terms favorable to him. So essentially, the Department of Justice represents federal agencies, including the IRS, in litigation. So if you're in litigation with the IRS and you happen to run the Department of Justice, your odds are looking pretty good on Kalshi. So that basically is so crazy. And then he's got this fund out there. And then I have a couple more clips that I do want to play for you guys. And this is PBS's coverage on it. So let me just play this for you guys so you can kind of get an idea of a few different news outlets and what they had to say about this story.
Well, there are new details on that deal the IRS and Justice Department struck with President Trump. The U.S. government has agreed to drop any tax claims and audits of the president, his sons, the Trump Organization, to include, according to a letter signed by Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. It comes a day after the government announced a $1.8 billion so-called anti-weaponization fund to compensate some of the president's allies. Our justice correspondent, Ali Rogan, joins us now with the latest. So, Ali, let's talk about this provision that bars the IRS from looking into the president and his family. What more do you know about it?
Yes, this document appears to have been released this morning. It says that the IRS is, quote, forever banned and precluded from reviewing any tax returns filed by the president, his family members, or his businesses. This, Jeff, is part of that larger agreement that President Trump agreed to drop this $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS after leaks of his confidential tax returns several years ago. The document says that this applies to, quote, any matters currently pending or that could be pending. That's definitely not language that is very clear. I spent part of this afternoon trying to figure out what that meant. The DOJ told me this afternoon that it means that this agreement only applies to tax returns that have already been filed, not to future returns. I also spoke this afternoon to former IRS Commissioner John Koskinen, who said the language in this document was, quote, designed to be impenetrable. And the fact that it was released a day after the DOJ made this big announcement about this settlement and this $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund suggests that they were trying to sneak it by the public, as Koskinen told me. It's worth mentioning, though, that President Trump has long complained and claimed that the IRS has been auditing him even well before he became president the first time. It's standard for the IRS to audit presidents each year, but a House Democratic investigation a few years back actually found that during President Trump's first term in office, the IRS only began one audit of 1 year of his tax returns, Jeff.
Okay, Ali Roganer, thanks to you.
That's interesting that she brings up that they just did the 1 year of tax returns, and that happens to be the year that got leaked. So I'm just wondering if that he created this this shitstorm around it and was like, I'm coming after you guys. This got leaked. This was illegal. $10 billion on you guys. And then the IRS is like, yo, Trump, let's cool it. We're not even going to look into stuff right now just because of how kind of bad we messed up here with our contractor, our IRS contractor, leaking your 2019-2020 returns, which is illegal. Sorry we did that, bro. We're not going to look into stuff till then. I don't know exactly why they didn't continue looking at his finances. Just because he's so high net worth, you'd think that the IRS would be wondering a lot about what's going on. And he's the president, and it's pretty standard practice that presidents have to undergo yearly audits. It sounds like that, at least. It sounds like that's the normal. I wouldn't like to get audited every year by the IRS. No, thank you. And then Yeah, that was just kind of crazy to think. Like they always want to say 1.8 billion. Guys, just say 1.776. He did it because of 1776, calling back to the founders. We all know this. So that was PBS's take on it. I did want to give you guys another take on it just because I think it's important to get all the different outlets here, kind of. I try to get like non-biased stuff as much as I can. You know what I'm saying? So this is actually gonna be from. Let me get right to it, and it's right here. This is CBS, guys. This is CBS's take on
Now
this.
this is part of a settlement between President Trump and the IRS over the leak of his tax returns. Critics worry this fund will use taxpayer money to help Trump get retribution for his supporters, and that could include pardoned Capitol rioters. Nancy Cordes asked the president about this yesterday at the White House.
Do you believe that people who committed violence against Capitol Hill police officers on January 6th should be eligible for compensation from this DOJ fund? And are you or your family members going to be seeking compensation from that fund?
It'll all be dependent on a committee. A committee's being set up of very talented people, very highly respected people. I do believe there has to be compensation for people that were destroyed. You have families absolutely destroyed.
That's interesting to see CBS's take on there, and it is kind of scary because I mean there's a lot of Democrats that are coming out talking about how it's essentially a slush fund, which has negative connotations, that it's not being managed with much oversight. So there's definitely a lot of prone to corruption, you could say. So here's just a few we got to get the tweets, of course, guys. We got to get the tweets here. So Elizabeth Warren, who's on the party with the Democrats here. Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren, I should say, says this. This is an unprecedented level of corruption. Trump is forcing the government to drop all tax audits of him, his family, and his businesses, giving him full immunity from prosecution. What is Trump hiding from the American people? Congress must step up and stop this corruption. And then she's just like replying from Politico, who says Justice Department expands Trump's settlement to cover his tax audits, which is really problematic, guys. Let's not get it twisted, right? That's really messed up that Trump, who's heading the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is essentially giving himself like unlimited get out of jail free cards. That's basically what we're getting. And then I did want to say that there's a lot of fake news out there. So there's this one guy who's an influencer, and I see his post on X quite often, and he's on the Democrat side. At least, I mean, he doesn't seem like he's a politician, more like a podcaster. Which, that's in the business I'm in, right? But it's like this guy definitely is just spreading fake news. They do community notes on X, and it does do work. You only do so much. I put one in on this guy. But Spencer Hakimian, he says Trump was just given a blanket pardon from the IRS for any past, present, or future tax crimes. The story's already outrageous enough, guys. It's already crazy that he was able to settle with the IRS because the IRS has their litigation done by the Department of Justice, who Trump runs. So it is self-dealing in the legal system there. And he's getting misinformation over here to make a story that's already crazy, and he's putting gasoline on something, and it's not true though, because it's like future tax crimes. It's like, no, it's May 2026 and before that. Anything coming forward, you could get him for it. Now, I'm not saying that there's not corruption going on, and that potentially, if they were to try to audit him in the future, come on, like, you would think he was going to sit silent and try to just stand by for that. But in this particular case, the IRS did not settle for all future tax crimes. Like, he could still get audited in the future. So this is just fake news, right? So that's just fake news. And it's like, wow, that guy has a huge following, and he's just spreading misinformation like that. And there's a lot of influencers that are doing that, I feel like, because, I mean, they're getting paid to do this, right? I would never sell my soul to that. I will happily work a 9 to 5 and do this late nights like this, not getting paid at all. This is just a hobby, of course. And I appreciate all you guys for watching, seriously. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does mean a lot. and I'm just trying to grow the channel, and just because it's fun to do, and it's worth trying to level up. But I'm not out here trying to sell my soul and just give out misinformation that makes people ignorant and makes people upset and divisive. So that guy is actually like, he deserves to like burn in hell for like doing that. That's really messed up. So Spencer Hakimon is a fraud, and that is just misinformation. It's already a bad story, dude. You don't have to inflame it more. Like, it's already something to be upset about. You can already be upset about it. You don't have to actively be lying. But this fund, right? This fund for 1.776 billion, or 1.8 billion as CBS and PBS wants to call it, because they just don't want to give Trump the satisfaction of saying 1776, whatever. Yeah, it's really crazy because there does seem to be some people that did get unfairly attacked here. This is an interesting one. This is Overton. This is a clip that Overton shared. And Overton says, Vice President J.D. Vance just forced the White House press corps to cover the plight of Tina Peters. I said that with an accent. Tina Peters. He said the innocent grandmother is exactly the kind of person who should receive DOJ compensation for being targeted by Biden-era lawfare. Again, you know, Biden had a Department of Justice. That was also kind of controversial when he was coming after Trump. It was. The Department of Justice definitely does get weaponized. Vance. Tina Peters is this woman who is about to get out of prison, thanks in large part to the president's good work in Colorado. This is a woman who, at worst, if you believe everything that the prosecutor said about her, committed misdemeanor trespassing, and somebody threw the book at her. This innocent grandmother was going to spread 10 years in prison, completely disproportionate to any misdemeanor trespassing that I've ever seen. Was that fair? No. Is it reasonable for her to get some compensation for the fact she was treated unfairly? I think the answer is yes. And then we're going to get all into the Tina Peters story, guys, because the Tina Peters story is absolutely crazy. And I'm going to bring it to you right now because we got some great videos that cover this. I made some clips, so I hope they don't copyright me for this, because I spliced these clips myself to make it. But we're gonna just JD Vance from the tweet there. I gotta play the clip that for what he said.
Tina Peters is this woman who is about to get out of prison, thanks in large part to the president's good work in Colorado. This is a woman who, at worst, if you believe everything that the prosecutors said about her, committed misdemeanor trespassing, and somebody threw the book at her. This innocent grandmother was going to spend 10 years in prison, completely disproportionate to any misdemeanor trespassing that I've ever seen. Was that fair? No. Is it reasonable for her to get some compensation for the fact that she was treated unfairly? I think the answer is yes, and I think that what we're going to see, hopefully, is the entire country, led by this Department of Justice, turning the page on the lawfare. What I would like to propose, and I think the Democrats, hopefully they're willing to meet us halfway here. I won't hold my breath. But what I would propose is something very simple, that if you are willing to turn the page on Joe Biden's lawfare, why don't we prosecute people? Very simple principle. Why don't we prosecute people who violate the law? Let's not prosecute people because they said the wrong thing, or because they had the wrong political candidate, or because they had the wrong viewpoint. And I think part of turning the page on that, is to actually ensure the real victims of that lawfare receive some compensation. That's what this fund is going to be targeted at. And again, there's going to be a process to ensure that that money is only given to people who have actually, I hate to say earned it, but the people who actually were really mistreated by the previous administration and Department of Justice.
So that was very interesting, right? Because he's framing Tina Peters as being like this ultimate victim that's getting unfairly punished for her, I guess, her role in the January 6th riots. But actually, it's a completely different story. So she's not even charged for anything on the federal level, but the state level, believe it or not. And we're going to play the CNN clip, guys, just so you can get some more context into exactly what's going on with Tina Peters. I spliced this together myself, so hopefully no copyright or monetization issues. Well, I
Colorado's
don't get
Democratic Governor
monetization,
Jared
but
Polis.
let me just let you know I don't get any monetization or anything like that, so I shouldn't have said that. But no copyright claims. So let's just play this up, right?
Colorado's Democratic Governor Jared Polis says that election denier Tina Peters will get clemency after admitting that she, quote, made a mistake and misled Colorado election officials. Now, Peters, you may remember, is the former election clerk who is convicted of conspiring with fellow election deniers to breach her own county's election systems in an attempt to prove President Trump's baseless claims of voter fraud in the 2020 election. A lot of people might look at this and say, Tina Peters was convicted by a jury of her peers in a conservative-leaning county, no less. Why did you decide to commute her sentence?
I have to start, Caitlin, by correcting just one thing in the lead-in. She did not commit any crimes regarding the 2020 election. She certified President Biden won. This was after the 2021. It was a small municipal election in the town. The results were counted, no ballots were compromised, but she went in and illegally tried to copy software before an update came. So nothing to do with President Trump's election. Just wanted to make that clear. Look, what the appeals court found, and what I agree, is that fundamentally she deserves time, and she committed 4 felonies. Those are going to stay on her record. We're continuing to fight the president's bogus attempt to pardon her in court. But the truth of the matter is that her speech, meaning her conspiratorial beliefs and what she believes in, are certainly an anathema to me and most of your viewers, and I strongly disagree with. But those are not the basis and should not be the basis for a longer sentence than somebody would normally get for this crime. And that's really what the sentence reduction is all about.
After the president of the United States tried to overturn the 2020 election, and she was obviously a massive ally of his. And Mike Lindell, I mean, didn't come out of nowhere. He was also chief among those leading the 2020 election. So I just think saying that they're totally separated is not how people view this.
You're speaking to her beliefs. She is somebody who probably, you'd have to ask her, believes in something happening with the 2020 election. Her crimes were not related to that, actually. And she was county clerk. She certified Biden won. Trump happened to win her county. It's a conservative county. Her crimes were entirely related to the 2021 municipal election after ballots were counted. Nothing was compromised. She had 2 co-conspirators. They did everything as bad as she did. One got 6 months. One got probation only. And the unusual sentence for Tina, she had a poor defense. And as the appeals court with 3 Democratic appointed appeals justices found, she was ultimately punished for her beliefs and what she said rather than what she did.
And see, that to me, guys, is why I actually, when I was going through this whole rabbit hole with this whole story, guys, with the IRS settlement, with Donald Trump and heading the Department of Justice to basically self-litigate to drop the suit and essentially make him immune to any repercussions from any taxes or for, like, any audits, they're out the window. I mean, yes, he can get charged for future audits, which that one guy that I pointed out should go to hell and everything. I was like, dude, you can't just be lying. Like, I mean, yes, there's definitely a lot of room for corruption here. There's very problematic aspects to all of this. And it's all these funds that are 1.776 and they like to say 1.8 billion. Still a lot of money either number, right? And that's essentially in a fund that doesn't need congressional approval to be used. So Trump could potentially use that for any of his allies, like they're saying. I mean, I don't always agree with Democrat viewpoints, but there's definitely a lot to be concerned about. And I think that MAGA is such in a way of itself to like, hey, you know, he can do no wrong, but it's like we do have to look at all sides. I'm always like that, all right? This is kind of, there's a uniparty system. There are parties, a Republican or Democrat candidate, and there's no third party, so it's like they can work together a little bit, guys. They lead together and they make it seem like we have a choice. We either had Trump or Biden in the last election and Kamala Harris came at the very end. She didn't have a chance. What are we talking about, guys? And then I mean, this is blatantly corrupt stuff going on. He gets charged with 34 felonies from Biden's Department of Justice, who, let's be honest, Biden did weaponize the Department of Justice because he was unfavorable himself, and he had to try to pull one over on Trump so that Trump couldn't even compete to begin with. That's the best way to take an opponent out. I'm not going to lie. So I do understand Biden doing that. I get it. I would have weaponized the DOJ too if I was worried that popular vote was going to help Trump 100%. But also, at the same time, that doesn't negate the fact that Donald Trump could definitely use uh, that fund for a lot of nefarious purposes. There's definitely some workarounds, and that's the scary thing, right? He's a business guy. He's a guy that's lived his whole life understanding tax code and how to avoid the tax codes to benefit himself. Look, he's even gotten to the point where the IRS is not even going to audit the guy. Yes, he can still get audited potentially in the future, but I mean, if he's president, he owns the DOJ. He can just control litigation and make sure that, oh, hey, we'll drop this lawsuit and you just have to agree to this and bend the knee. I mean, that's a lot of power. That's actually a lot of power that he's able to. What you got to respect about Trump, whether you hate him or you like him, he really does take full advantage of the position that he's been given, right? I feel like there's presidents that maybe didn't even understand how powerful their position was and didn't do nearly as much as Trump has. He's like, yeah, he abuses his powers, but like it's kind of respectable or commendable in a way that it's like, I'm going to test it. I'm going to go out here. I'm going to test this rollout. I'm going to see how far I can get. Right? That's kind of like an entrepreneurial mindset in my opinion, which I do respect that kind of perspective or that point of view. It's kind of fresh in politics. Again, this is bad, guys. This is not good by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying that I try to emphasize with every political person and try to see what their motives are and their agendas. I even get why, like I said, I get why Biden weaponized the Department of Justice to go after Trump, make him a felon, make him unable to even run for president. And, it didn't work out, made his case even worse. It just, his whole campaign fell apart. Kamala came in at the end there, but that does not exclude Trump. This fund that he's got approved through self-litigation, which in itself is a huge conflict of interest, and like, where did checks and balances go? What is happening? And a big point for the checks and balances is just the fact that like, there's no politicians that seem to be uncorruptible, right? They've all taken money from APAC. They've all taken money from all these, like, lobbying groups are awful. Money in Capitol Hill is terrible. So I actually, I usually bag on Democrats more than Republicans, but Governor Polis of Colorado, maybe he's not managing his state the best fiscally, and on like a monetary policy wise aspect. Maybe there's some tough things going on with Colorado, but I mean, the whole country in general is kind of going through some tough spots right now. But I mean, the fact that he kind of stood by his principles and he didn't want her to get, Tina Peters to get punished more harshly than her co-conspirators in this it was a municipality election, and she did do some messed up stuff, which are felonies that he still has her on her record. He's not pardoning her by any means. But she does have felonies for election interference in the state, right? In the state of Colorado. So I think the thing is that, like he said, 6 months, and then the other guy had a little bit of time too, and she's getting like 9 years put on. That is kind of crazy. Not, and then even him being like, it was funny because he kind of compared her to flat earthers. And I think that's funny because he's a Democrat. He still believes in, that January 6th was completely, which there's a lot of people that debate January 6th. I think it was bad. I'm not pro riots. I never have been. But there's been a lot of riots before that kind of were championed off of other more progressive, thoughts that should have maybe gotten just the same level of scrutiny with the property damage that was done, with the violence invoked. But either way, let's stop talking about that and really just I just wanted to give Governor Polis a round of applause because the guy stuck by his integrity despite that being a very unpopular thing to do with the Democrat Party. He's a Democrat governor, right? And he's going out here and he's shortening the sentence of a, January 6th sympathizer, you could say at the least, and a election denier for sure. So hats off to him for doing that. That kind of reminds me of like the second president of the United States, John Adams. I was like, oh my God, because if you guys haven't seen it, you should watch the show John Adams. I think it was on HBO back in the day with Paul Giamatti. Super great show. But essentially, they show him and he's a lawyer, and then there's like the Boston redcoats, like, when the Boston massacre happened, like he actually was the defense attorney for the British soldiers that were in that. And to think that he's one of the founding fathers, right? Because he believed in the rule of law and he was a man of integrity first and foremost, right? And that's the thing I kind of want to see in more of our politicians. So maybe Governor Polis does have some skeletons in his closet. Maybe he's accepted donations from some suspicious private NGOs. Those are non-governmental bodies, like fundraisers and campaigns and stuff like that. Who knows? So, a lot of this money can't be directly traced. There's a lot of things people do to get around things. But he seems, at least to me, because it's like it's not a real big win for him. It makes him look bad in the Democrats' eyes. The Republicans know that he's still a Democrat, so they're not gonna accept him either. So to be a centrist these days is basically impossible to achieve. So I do hope that more people can kind of just use their own judgment and have more integrity, because I do not like the following of one party or the other, because it does seem like they all flock to the leader and there's no independent thought in politics, which is really sad. And I do just want to see an overhaul, a change, because there's a lot of bad things about market manipulation, and there's so much you could talk about with Trump. I'm not out here trying to defend Trump. I'm just saying he's using the playbook better than any of his cronies have before him. Like if you had Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Trump all together, and Biden all together. I hope Biden's fit mentally there to do their. I mean, even Trump's kind of crazy sometimes. But get all those guys together, all the last presidents that we've had, and they'd probably all be jealous that they couldn't get away with as much as Trump, or they didn't think of that. And then Obama would be like, damn, Trump, I can't believe it, but you did a great job. I would have never thought about using the Department of Justice. He's like, I wouldn't have got that. Not without Biden. Biden, you're smiling, but you used the Department of Justice. And then it's like, I mean, he just learned the playbook. I mean, Trump has probably laid out a good playbook for all of the successors that he's gonna have. We'll see how it goes. And we'll see because there's never going to be like a third party at the rate we're going. And then there's just so much cynicism with politics and the government. And then AI is crazy right now. Elon Musk is crazy. Is there even going to be a government in 10 years? But yeah, this trust or this fund that they brought up with the 1.8 billion, 1.776, hopefully it gets used appropriately, I guess. It still is kind of crazy. I don't know how everyone else feels about January 6th. That's definitely a controversial time. But I don't know if I would necessarily give them a whole bunch of taxpayer money. But I also don't want people to get in prison for 10 years on what should be like a 6-month sentence if it's true with what, Governor Polis was saying. Just because of the polarization and the politically charged nature of politics, it's kind of redundant what I just said. But there's so much divisiveness and people attacking each other. It's just nice to see someone that's principled be like, hey, I don't agree with this person. I don't even like this person. But I am going to believe in their rights and make sure that they're not being unfairly or unconstitutionally prosecuted. because you can't come after someone harsher than someone else based off of personal beliefs. That's not correct to me. Even if you don't believe or share those beliefs that they have, that doesn't give you the right to lock them up or to punish them for said beliefs. But that's all I got today, guys. I thought that was an interesting story. I guess I'm gonna just look at this and say, okay, if you ever become president, the best thing you can do is just like use the Department of Justice to get whatever you want. But yeah, just guys, if you have anything that you'd want to add to this conversation, this is always an open dialogue. Please comment, please, and then please like and subscribe. Always helps the channel. But I appreciate any feedback anyone has. What do you guys think about this whole story? What do you guys think about Trump? Do you think? Yeah, just tell me what you think. I really appreciate y'all. This has been another episode of What the X? If you like that clip, feel free to click on this clip or even this clip. And then, hey, don't forget about that clip over here. Thanks, guys.